Picture that you're playing a character who's greatly connected to their weapon. For example, a sword which was passed down through generations in their family, kind of like Eddard Stark from a Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, picture that your party is in a dungeon and you find a new, shiny sword which gives you +1 to attacks and damage. Now, your character has to make a decision that would either hinder the character's story, if they choose to throw away their ancient sword, or their prowess in case of deciding to remain faithful to the old ways. Welcome to Dungeon Hussars, where today I'll show you how I would fix D&D magical weapons by creating a runic enchanting system. Unfortunately, for characters connected to their blade, D&D gameplay is heavily skewed in favor of a playstyle where a party adventures and gains new, more powerful items by looting dungeons, tombs, and numerous other ancient structures. This is mostly an issue only for those types of characters, as others will most likely feel no remorse for the weapon that they are yeeting into their bag of holding. Now, some of you may ask, couldn't a character discarding their old weapon or resigning from greater power in order to upkeep their ways be a nice conflict generator? Well, it might be the case in books or other media. However, in D&D the progression works in a way that kind of assumes that characters will eventually acquire magical items, and consequentially is balanced that way. Although the GM still retains absolute control over the encounters they run, balancing for a party which consists of non-magic weapon users, for example those who value their ancestral weapon, magic weapon users, and spellcasters is basically impossible. Regardless whether the encounter is planned for magic item only characters or it is made easier in order to make non-magical weapon users at least somewhat reliable, the outcome will be the same. Characters with magic items tend to overshadow those without them. The final thing that I want to talk about before heading into the part where I'll present the solution is the genericness of D&D weapons. That's because they all feel really similar. Even after 2024 PHB came out and for the most part greatly improved it, the options you have are still greatly limited if your character rejects magical weapons. Dungeons & Dragons has some awkward tries to make characters connected to their weapon feel more powerful. The first one is awarding them with magic items that are not weapons, and it seems somewhat against the character's spirit, with magical accessories like necklaces or rings being a greater source of power for a character than the story-relevant item. It really seems to be contradicting the idea itself. While the second one, creating magical items by the players, which is stated in the DMG, is too slow and too expensive for a player to effectively use. So the enchanting system that I'll provide has to have the following traits. It has to be cheaper and faster than the inbuilt system for player magic item creation in the game. Seriously, how many times during your games have you seen a player creating a magic item with this D&D's inherent system? I can tell you that in all of my GMing and playing career, I've never seen it, and I literally saw my players completely disregarding the plot in order to mine some ores. Enchanted weapons and magical weapons can never combine into one. The point of this video is to give options to characters who do not want to use magical weapons or just want to try something new. Therefore, if we made that enchanted weapons could basically reduce to magical enchanted weapons, since they're even more powerful, this whole video would be pointless. We need to balance the enchanted weapons and the classical magical weapons so that their power level would stay roughly the same. The choice whether to use enchanted weapons or classical magical weapons has to be actually meaningful and not just something that you can easily choose the more powerful option. That's why we need to make the enchants powerful enough to compete with the regular magical item power level, while also not allowing them to just overshadow their inbuilt counterparts. And finally, the enchanting system shall provide the player with a lot of options and customizations to alleviate the aforementioned genericness of D&D weapons. The enchanting system which I've created takes the form of perhaps the most common and iconic fantastical and even real-world history method of enchanting your blade, which are runes. I believe that this is what makes sense in fantasy aspect, as I always wondered why D&D has so few runes and why can't we enchant our weapons or armor with them. Well, now you might be saying that in fact the Rune Knight can, but actually their abilities are unable to provide a replacement for magical weapons, as they were never even meant to do so. In order for a character to access the runes, they either have to be a rune knight fighter or any kind of artificer, as for me, those types of characters should logically and ideologically have access to rune making. However, restricting the access to the system only for those characters would be inconsistent with our goals, as it would force people who want to play with enchanted weapons into at least dipping for the rune carving ability. Although again, allowing everyone to forge runes would make the barrier for entry a bit too low, so we need some solution in between. That's why the other option to gain rune-imbued weapons is via the rune carver feat. The key aspect of this system is generalization versus specialization. That is the reason why I went with the trees as a foundation for this system, as I believe that this is the best way I could present this dilemma. There are 3 runic progression trees that reflect how a weapon can be used, basically an oversimplified version of using different styles of fighting, namely protection, destruction and distraction, and all those trees also branch out, giving you 2 main options in which you can pursue a style. Protection allows you to create walls, which you can use in order to protect thy allies or encase thy foes. Destruction makes you even better at what weapons are already supposed to excel at, which is hitting stuff hard. With those runes, you're going to be able to rip lightning from the sky. Currently in my campaign, the paladin uses the destruction runes. And I'll just say one thing, you don't want to be a demon when he smites while also touring the heavens with lightning. Finally, distraction allows you to teleport, extend your reach and enhance your mobility in other ways. With those runes, you could basically become Quicksilver from X-Men. When you take the rune carver feat or play the rune knight or an artificer, you can choose one statistic upon which your runic saving throw DC is based upon. Additionally, you can learn a number of these runes equal to your proficiency bonus instantly. You will gain more as your proficiency bonus increases. Also, you do not have to follow a single tree for your entire career. If you feel like runes from other trees would be more useful for your character, go for them. Just keep in mind that in order to be able to pick a rune, it either has to be the first tier rune, or it must be connected to a rune you already have. For example, let's say that I'm playing a character that follows the protection tree, and let's say that I have the ice and ice wall runes. Now, when I decide that my character could benefit from the travel rune which grants teleportation, I would first have to pick the journey rune to go there. The last thing that I want to talk about in this video is fueling runes. I purposefully mentioned that in D&D, magical weapons are, at least from my experience, mostly handled as an award from the party's adventures, either in the form of loot or gifts. Ergo, power is granted from doing your typical adventurer stuff, and I wanted to keep that to some extent in my enchanting system. Well, there is that, and there's also the fact that I found the druidic divination ritual of piercing someone in order for their blood to reveal the future quite interesting. Hence, I got inspired to establish the requirement of some sacrifice in order to gain access to the power. For when you carve a rune, you have to activate it by doing something related to the rune's element. It could be something that I've suggested, i.e. getting a weapon struck by the lightning, or slaying a specific creature. But honestly, it could be anything that your GM might want to make instead. And that's basically it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. In the link in the description you can find the documents presenting our entire system. I really hope that you'll enjoy it. We're open to chat and improve it, so we invite you to our Discord server. If you enjoyed this video, then leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel. And for now, goodbye.